Well, that's been a really entertaining half of football between the Saints and the Browns. What's up, guys? Welcome inside our halftime edition of the Straight Up Saints podcast. I'm your host, Chris Rosvogel, and as always, our halftime show is powered by 4D. The Saints have a 14-6 lead in the first half. They're going to get the ball to start the second half. Honestly, guys, while the score is in their favor, I think this really could have been a blowout in New Orleans' direction for most of this half. I think they've played pretty good football with a couple of miscues that bad teams usually make, and I think that's kind of been the Achilles heel in this first half. Think about the fumble from Taysom Hill that was just costly. That probably, at the minimum, cost you 3, maybe cost you 7 points to get this to 21-6. Think of the holding call on Juwan Johnson on that pass from Derek Carr to Foster Moreau, maybe cost you 7, minimum 3. So I think New Orleans, from an offensive standpoint in this first half, if you take away the miscues, and it's very hard to say if you take away the miscues because the miscues are part of the game, they have moved the ball extremely well and pretty easy, whether it's Alvin on the ground, whether it's Marquez Valdes-Scantling through the air. Juwan Johnson's made some nice big plays in the passing game as well. The Saints are moving it. Alvin looks comfortable. The offensive line has looked really good with Erik McCoy back in the mix, and things are really comfortable for Derek Carr, and he's just looking like a guy out there that's just playing a simple game of pitch and catch, and it's working to perfection right now for New Orleans. I mean, just looking at the numbers, Derek Carr's 13 of 15 in the first half for 167 and a touchdown, hasn't made any mistakes at all, and honestly, as much as we all love him, the biggest problem for the Saints in this first half has kind of been Taysom Hill. Has the interception on the play where I am not a fan of them throwing the football deep with Taysom, and then having the fumble later on towards the end of the second quarter where good throw, get into first and goal, and just can't hang on to the football and ends up getting ripped out of his hands. So a very interesting first half. I think, like I said, New Orleans offensively has been flawless until they make the critical mistake. And then defensively, there's a whole lot to talk about, and we could jump into that. But before I do that, I want to remind you guys, as we do for every halftime show, if you have any thoughts, put them in the chat and I'll pull them up. And also, if you guys enjoy the content we have here, to smash the like button. It greatly helps out the channel. So defensively, guys, same concerns I've had last week, right? Pressure is inconsistent. I think this defensive line, we knew coming into this game, it's going to need to get revamped in the offseason. But it's more apparent today when you go up against a Cleveland offensive line that's given up the most sacks in the NFL this season, and there just isn't a lot of pressure outside of a coverage sack, which truthfully wasn't even that much of a coverage sack. Jameis Winston missed his wide open man to the left. I believe it was David Njoku who was open, and he takes the sack. This defensive line hasn't done enough. And then in the secondary, Alontae Taylor's second straight game where he's had a rough go at it. We'll see if he can correct things in the second half, but Jerry Jeudy's already got over 120 receiving yards, and the brunt of those yards really just come against Alontae Taylor in coverage. So we'll see if he can bounce back in the second half. But defensively, I would say those are concerns. The third and final note I have from this first half, and there's no science to this, is Darren Rizzi might just be good luck when it comes to the Saints going up against opposing kickers. Because last week, Younghoe Koo missed 3 field goals against the Saints. This week, Dustin Hopkins has already missed 2 field goals. And honestly, it really feels like 3 field goals because he misses a 32-yarder. The refs call a really bogus defensive holding on Peyton Turner, which wasn't even on him. And then a couple of plays later, Hopkins misses a 27-yarder. And there's no explanation for missing a 27-yard field goal in the dome. Sometimes it takes a little bit of luck. And the Saints haven't had a lot of luck the last couple of years. But the last 2 games, with Darren Rizzi in charge, call it what it is. I don't know what it is, honestly. It really is just luck. The Saints have had the ball bounce their way. And for them right now, when you're up 14-6, I think it is so imperative for the second half. You come out firing and really doing what you've done offensively most of this game without the silly mistakes, without the holding on that 4th down conversion, without the fumble in the red zone from Taysom Hill. If the Saints eliminate that, they'll move to 2-0 under Darren Rizzi and get a little win streak going into the bye. But they have to erase those mistakes because right now Cleveland hasn't really made those critical errors, and the Saints have while still dominating the game. So hopefully they can cut that out and continue to do the same script. The one thing I would say for New Orleans that's a huge positive, not just for today, but moving forward, it seems like Clint Kubiak calls a totally different game when he's got Erik McCoy healthy. And I love that about the offense. So we'll see if they can keep their foot on the gas. But I'm going to get into what you guys have to say here as we get closer to the second half. I'm going to start with John here saying, I think one of our biggest problems is we get too cute when it's not necessary. Direct snap to Kamara during week 3 and the long bomb from Hill today. not needed. It's definitely not needed from Taysom because the one thing about Taysom when he was starting at quarterback briefly during those seasons, we all said like he doesn't have a strong arm. Like the dude is jacked out of his mind, but he doesn't have a strong arm, which kind of makes no sense. It's just kind of odd, to be honest. And for him to kind of throw what was essentially an arm punt in this stage of the game, Saints got too cute in a 7-6 game, which I didn't understand. And my biggest problem was you can say whatever you want about Derek Carr. One thing you cannot take away from him is he's an excellent deep ball thrower. And to have Taysom come in when that's not his specialty and do that, I mean, it just seems so stupid. Forgive says, hate to blame Taysom, but he's the reason the score isn't at least 28-6. Honestly, he's at least why it isn't 21-6. The fumble is brutal. I would say this, though. Everyone keeps harping on the interception. It's a bad interception. There's no guarantee they score on that drive. The crazier thing is the holding penalty they had on 4th down when Derek Carr throws it deep to Foster Moreau, and they're inside the 5. So that is another costly penalty. That one doesn't fall on Taysom, but 21-6 minimum if Taysom isn't struggling, and maybe more. Maybe they score on the drive that he has the interception. So he's definitely been a negative today, which is unfortunate, you know? Fred says, extend MVS right now. Where would the Saints be without MVS? I really don't know. I mean, 71-yard touchdown today. It's insane that they're just pretty much picking wide receivers up off the streets, putting them in their offense, and having success. MVS success so far. Dante Pettis had a nice catch for 9 yards to give them a first down at some point. I believe Kevin Austin had a nice catch earlier. So kind of have like what you would essentially call, I don't want to say no names. MVS has played with some great quarterbacks, but guys that were free agents and they're paying big dividends for this team right now. Saints 41 says 2024 Saints football, no matter who the damn head coach is. Saints Nation says risen those opposing kickers. I don't know what it is. Ed says he put the whammy on the kickers. He put some type of hex on them for sure, man, because those kicks were going in when Dennis Allen was here, and all of a sudden those things are going wide left, and I have no explanation for it other than sometimes you get a little lucky, and the Saints have been getting that luck. Blair says credit where credit is due. Carr's playing well. Taysom one bad turnover. The fumble was a great play by Ward. Yeah, I mean, it's a costly one. Great play by Ward, by the way, who's been everywhere this half, and we'll see because his injury would be pretty significant if he can't play. I don't know where Cleveland's going to turn to as that defensive playmaker for them in the secondary, but yeah, I mean, the fumble is costly. Carr's been outstanding today. Like I said, 13 of 15. He has not put the ball in harm's way. He's taking what the defense has given him. You know, even the throw to Marquez Valdes-Scantling, I love the idea of kind of letting him roll out of the pocket. I've always said the weird thing about Derek Carr is he's actually a decent athlete. He just doesn't use his athletic skills. So it's nice to see him roll out of the pocket, make some plays on the move today. And that's back-to-back games right now where he's looked sharp. Hopefully he has a second, a really strong second half to solidify what would be a nice little stretch for him here. Saints Nation says opposing kickers are now 2-7 since Rizzi took over. That is an insane stat if that is correct. Is it 2-7 though? Is it 2 for 7? I know Hopkins today is 0 for 2. Was Younghoe Koo really 2 for 5 yesterday? Last week? I can't even remember. Younghoe Koo last week was 1 for 4. Wow. So 1 for 6 kickers right now in the Rizzi era. That's just nuts. Sean says Rizzi ball so funny. Kofi says Rizzi saved me. Shane says 2 bad teams that can't get out of their way. It does feel that way. It does feel that way, you know? So I think that I think it's going to be the key for the second half, right? Can the Saints just not make these stupid mistakes that they made in this first half? And if they do that, I think they'll cruise to victory because they've really been able to dictate the game pace, especially offensively. They're moving the ball really efficiently. And I think that for New Orleans, this second half is so critical to come out, continue setting the tone, continue winning the time possession, and put some freaking points up on the board. They've been way too good today to only have 14 in this half. Bayou Boys 504 says, hate to say it, but Taysom is our kryptonite right now. He's definitely been one of the weak points, which is crazy because Taysom's had what started off to be it was starting off to be a great game, like the Taysom game, right? 18-yard completion, a couple of nice runs. He's already got 7 catches today, which is nuts. He had a nice kickoff return. So Taysom's done a lot of good today, but the bad has obviously outweighed the good. Fred says DA would have found a way to be losing this game right now. Team is playing for Rizzi. They are. The energy is contagious for this team at the moment, and I love what I'm seeing out of them from an energy standpoint. I do think they lack in certain areas, and that'll eventually be their undoing, but the energy is there. Xavier says, like what I'm seeing from everyone except the cornerback, need them to step up a little. Yeah, I think Alante is the guy that you really, really need to really help and bounce back. The last 6 quarters of football for him have been really rough. Rachel says, kicker's been helping us. Sean says, we're getting a worse draft pick, but F it, let's win out and make the playoffs. Michael says, looked like the battle of the two worst teams. Forgive says, gotta hope Clinton used all his magic because Cleveland has almost 300 yards at halftime. Only a matter of time before they completely shred this defense and start scoring touchdowns. Yeah, I mean, the number is slightly skewed because 89 yards of it came on one play to Jerry Jeudy, but they are having their way with the Saints defense. And, I think they're getting pretty fortunate. Jameis missed a wide open guy early in the first half, and obviously the missed field goals here. Xavier says Taysom gives and takes away. Can't take him out because he's a big part of the offense. Just got to clean up the turnovers. Yeah, I wouldn't suggest benching Taysom. Taysom's too significant of a piece. Just can't have those mistakes. That's the thing. Mario Boys 504 says, why wasn't that PI on the Taysom interception? Looked like the defender just knocked MVS down. My only thought was maybe because Ward kind of like stepped in front of that throw, and where MVS landed was way behind the throw. That's my only thing, because it wasn't a good throw from Taysom. I think a better throw, maybe you get the call, but I think that's part of the problem. It just wasn't a good one. Derek says the defense is so bad. If the Browns hadn't been breaking down in the red zone, it'd be 22-14. I could argue the Saints should have way more points too, though, personally. Who dat 712 says Taysom's killing me, Smalls. Carl says got that Ricky Bobby voodoo going for them. It feels that way. Kyle says with McCoy back, the O-line's playing well again. Just dictating the game pace, and the screen game's been back. There's been a couple of nice screen passes to Kamara so far. So I like what I'm seeing from New Orleans' offense, and I'm not really surprised that now that McCoy's back, they feel like, they can open it up a little bit more. Joshua says, you forget Taysom's 3 first downs and 1 touchdown. His reception and 43-yard run back from the kickoff. Get off Taysom's ass. The guy can ball. No, Taysom's still a baller. He's having some critical errors today, though, and it's okay to say that. Hopefully, Taysom can do more good things like he did in the beginning of this game and minimize the damage. Not to exaggerate, Bakar with time in the pocket is the greatest quarterback to play the game. He has been good, though. With time in the pocket, he's been really good. There's no doubt about it. Jerry G says, like what I'm seeing, Taysom will be all right. I think he'll bounce back for sure. Rob says Chase Young should feast on the 4th string left tackle. Yeah, would hope so. Would absolutely hope so. Going to get a real quick word in, guys, from Theo's Pizza, and then we'll wrap up with any comments you have, and then hopefully Saints can dominate the second half. But let's get a quick word in from Theo's Pizza.
Scan the code now and tackle your hunger with Theo's Pizza, your neighborhood pizza with 5 convenient locations. Who dat? Your taste buds are about to find out.
So, guys, second half's about to start here for New Orleans. I'll just wrap it up by saying this. I truthfully believe if they just cut down on the errors, continue to dictate the game with the run game, the screen game. Alvin's obviously been critical when he's been given the chance. He's been so good today. I think they'll be in good shape. Defensively, though, man, the back end's got to be better. I think the back end's been really susceptible, and Jameis is starting to get into some rhythm. So I think it's so important for the Saints to kind of set the tone with this opening drive. And if they do that, kind of make Cleveland one-dimensional, maybe you can get Jameis into a mistake, but you got to start with the offense, putting some points on the board and making this a 2-possession game. I think that's going to be key. If the Saints do that, I think they'll be okay. But that's going to wrap it up, guys, for us on this halftime show powered by 4D. I want to tell you, as always, we will have our post-game live stream, win or lose. We'll be here, and we'll go through everyone's comments. So if you guys have time after the game, make sure to stop by. I'd love to chat Saints football with you guys, but that's going to wrap it up, and we'll have more content here on the Straight Up Saints podcast, the destination for the Who Dat Nation.